Hello, and welcome to the Handplane Challenge. I'm Mark, your host and referee/umpire. Today's challenge is between a Union X4 and a Marples X4, otherwise known as the X4 files. Before we dig into the meat of it, let's review the three main ideas behind the Handplane Challenge video series. One, we like to evaluate planes for things that will make that plane not work well in the hands of the average user. It's just not all planes are created equal, and we like to point out why some planes are less equal than others. Secondly, we feel it's very hard to objectively say whether how good a plane is. For example, let's say we wanted to give a plane a grade on a scale of 1 to 10. Is it a 5? Is it an 8? Or maybe I say it's a 6 and some other guy says it's a 9. It's just hard to come up with objective test criteria to make that evaluation. However, I do feel like I can say with a reasonable degree of certainty whether one plane is better than another plane. So the Handplane Challenge is based on relative comparisons of two or more handplanes. Lastly, a handplane is basically simply a device for holding a chisel at a particular angle relative to the workpiece. Typically a 45-degree angle, but others will work. And I just find it fascinating, the huge number of creative ideas that people have come up with to modify this simple relationship. Okay. Today's matchup is between the Union X4 and the Marples X4. Why this particular matchup? Well, the vast majority of metal planes sold today are based on movable frog designs, first popularized by Stanley Bailey. These two planes went in a different direction, and we'll see more about that in just a bit. We're going to briefly cover the history of the Union Manufacturing Company. I've covered the Marples X4 in a previous video, so I'm not going to redo the history of the Marples plane company in this video. Please refer to that earlier video if you would like to find out more. A little bit of history on the Union Manufacturing Company. It was formed in 1866 as a combination of several companies, hence the name Union. It didn't actually start manufacturing hand planes until around 1900 or so. The Union Manufacturing Company purchased the remnants of the Birmingham Plane Company. This gave Union access to standard pattern hand planes, i.e. ones very similar to the Bailey style of the Stanley Company. And so they began selling the X-type planes in 1904. Stanley, sensing a threat to its lucrative Bedrock line of planes, bought the plane business of Union, not the entire company, in 1920. No more Union planes were manufactured at that point, but apparently they must have had an extensive inventory of Union planes and parts, because Stanley continued selling them until about 1935. Another reason for doing the X4 files in this video is that the original Union Manufacturing Company sort of went completely out of business in the 1980s. However, it has been recently revived by Robert Porter, and the X type of planes will be offered in the near future. Furthermore, the new company's website is a fountain of Union historical and technical information, and so I'm only going to give the highlights in this video. Furthermore, unlike some of the other videos that we've done, there are two really good YouTube videos out there. One by Robert Porter himself, I heartily recommend it, and another by James Wright of Wood by Wright. Both of these are very nice videos and could also be watched in addition for more information. Okay, let's take a close-up look at the Union X4 and compare it to the Marples X4. This is a Type 3. This would be then made sometime after 1920, after the Union plane business was acquired by Stanley. How do we know it's a Type 3? It has the small lever cap knob, 3/4 of an inch. It has a two-piece nut and bolt for the tote and the knob. It has the Stanley style tote, and I mean, so it's pretty clearly a Type 3, no doubt about that. It's not a Type 4, we know, because when we take it apart here, a Type 4 of course would have a single screw for the knob, but more distinctively, a Type 4 would have a screw holding the lateral adjustment lever in. This has a peened lateral adjustment lever. Okay, so Robert Porter gave a very detailed tour of a Union X plane, Union X type plane. And so we're only going to cover the highlights here. His video goes into great detail about mechanical features. First off, nice heavy-duty fixed frog. Pretty thick fins here, bridged at the top. The axle here goes all the way from one side of the plane to the next. Nice wide machined surface down here at the bottom. So nice and heavy duty. What would a not so heavy duty one look like, you ask? Here's another fixed frog plane. This is a Stanley 104 Liberty Bell type. Instead of having continuous fins for the fixed frog, it just sort of has these uprights, small support surface here, pretty big machine surface down here, so that's not too bad, but definitely, you know, less beefy than the Union plane. Now, the big point about having this particular hand plane challenge is to point out that both of these planes are fixed frog designs. In the Marples case, I'm not going to go into any detail on this because of the earlier video, but you can see that it also has a monster big fixed frog here. The frog will detach if you undo these screws, but it does not move back and forward. It just fastens down to the bed, and it's a solid piece of some type of hardwood. So also a nice big beefy fixed frog. Okay, lateral adjustment lever. I just want to point out that Union always uses these twisted lateral adjustment levers. That's kind of distinctive. Every handplane manufacturer had their own kind of permutation, so, and I'll just refer you to online sources for that. We're not going to go into it here. The lever cap mounting, we've got these two surfaces here, two small tabs on each cheek where the lever cap they mate with those slots, and the lever cap fits right in. Furthermore, underneath the lever cap, you can see that it's not an even surface. It sort of slides in and glides down to the surface of the plane iron to sort of give a wider area of grip. The last feature I'm going to cover on the Union X4 is the depth adjustment mechanism, because it's so unique. You can see that basically there's a tilted bolt, two knobs, and a lever that actuates this tab that fits into the rectangular slot on the cap iron. Why is this particular arrangement, why for example is the bolt tilted? Yet you can see that this pivots on one point here, so this moves through an arc, and so this whole arrangement is designed this way to accommodate the arc of the lever. So the lever is slotted here. You can see that here the bolt is that way, you move it all the way up, and the bolt is more towards that end in the slot. So all of that serves to accommodate the arc of the depth adjustment lever. But more than anything, what happens is you move this one, you move that one to tighten it, and so this lever moves only as much as the nuts will allow it, which gives you very fine control. You can move the nuts as little as you want or as much as you want. And then furthermore, there's no backlash in this mechanism. There can be a little backlash because of course this tab doesn't fit 100% tightly in the slot, but it's pretty close. It's not. That's the only source of backlash in the Union X4 plane. Okay, one last look at the Marples. So we commented on the heavy-duty fixed frog. The Marples has the adjustable mouth. Like I say, all of this covered in more detail in the previous video. And lastly, it has more of a Bailey type adjusting mechanism, which, as I commented previously in the earlier video, it does have a fairly significant amount of backlash in that one. So that's a definite detraction for the Marples X4. Okay, so that was just an overview. Many subtle details covered in the video by Robert Porter, so take a look at that if you care to. let's see if these will take a shaving. We're going to start out with the Union X4, and we're going to change the depth a little bit to see how well the depth adjuster works. And so without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, pretty fine shavings, pretty thin. One thing I'll note is that this plane was in pretty good shape when I got it, but the bottom looks like the bottom needed some work, and I've been working on it, and I think it's much better than it was, but still not 100% right. One more shaving. Pretty much the full width, pretty much the full length of the board, nice and thin. Now let's make it fit. Let's make it thicker. So we're going to go about one turn to lower, one revolution of the depth adjustment knob, and let's see what happens. Okay, very nice. Full length of the board, pretty wide, thicker than the other one. This one was pretty wispy. It was about, it was breaking up in a few places. This one is much more intact and given a very nice shaving. Now, let's go back in the other direction about one turn. Yeah, that's about like the first time. Pretty close. It's kind of hard to tell for sure. Let's go down even one more turn. Okay, so in that setting we were just taking a thin shaving out of the middle of the cutter. Back up. Got more shaving there. Didn't seem to go quite back to the original setting. One thing I'm still learning is how tight to tighten the knob here while doing this, so I might be a little off on that. Let's do one more. Alrighty then. Nice control on the depth. I might need a little practice on this still, so it's doing good. Definitely nice control of the depth on that one. Okay, now the Marples X4 is up to bat. That was pretty good. Nice long shaving, most pretty wide. Very nice. As this one worked really good. I haven't actually even used it much since the last test. That's doing superbly well. Pretty thin shaving. Just not going to do much better than that. We'll make it just a hair deeper. Yep. Good enough. It's working just as well as it ever has. Very happy with it. So this is the Marples X4. I've moved the mouth back to the front, so the normal mouth opening. Since the Union X4 doesn't have a closed mouth or an adjustable mouth, there was no reason to do otherwise with this one. Marples X4. Now it's time for the conclusions. The Union X4 is a great plane. I can see why Stanley was worried about the competition and decided to buy him out. It definitely seems to me like they were a threat to Stanley's bedrock business. Certainly the outstanding feature on this plane is the depth adjustment mechanism. It's got extremely fine control. It goes forward and reverse quite well. I observed a little bit of hysteresis when raising and then lowering the plane, the cutter, but it was pretty darn close. I just don't think there's another depth adjustment mechanism out there that works any better. It didn't take a shaving quite as well as the Marples with as much ease. I think that's because the bottom needs yet more flattening. I've been working on it quite a bit already, but probably needs a little bit more. And so maybe I'll report back on that in the future. But nonetheless, even with that, it still did very well in the shaving test. The Marples X4 takes a shaving very well. It's just a joy to use. And having a mouth adjustment feature is clearly a positive attribute relative to the Union. So even though the depth adjustment mechanism has a lot of backlash, at the end of the day, I'm still saying that the Marples X4 wins over the Union X4. Not by a lot, but definitely, clearly a little better. Nonetheless, I'm happy to own, anyone would be happy to own either one of these planes. However, the new Union manufacturing company that I referred to earlier in the video claims that an adjustable mouth will be available on most of their plane lineup. If so, the combination of X-type depth adjustment, heavy-duty fixed frog to securely support the cutter, and an adjustable mouth will make for an interesting new entry into the modern plane competition, possibly giving the likes of Lee Nielsen and Lee Valley a run for their money. So, final word, I'm giving the nod to the Marples X4, but the Union X4 was a close runner-up. But there is a larger question here that I've been pondering. Both of these planes are fixed frog type planes. And they both seem to work extremely well. And if you have a mouth adjustment feature on it, it works It has all the functionality of any modern plane with a movable frog. And so it leads me to wonder, why is it that all planes in the last 100 years, all metal planes I should say, in the last 100 years have been pretty much based on the movable frog design? I don't think, it doesn't strike me that the Union type plane was that expensive to manufacture, although you mechanical engineering experts out there, feel free to weigh in on this question. And so if it's not any more expensive to manufacture, I just don't understand why there are so few of them. The question is, I guess, is this a case where the herd all started moving in one direction and nobody thought to ask why? I'd be delighted to hear your opinions on this subject. I want to just say before I sign off that I am in no way affiliated with the new Union Manufacturing Company, nor do I receive any remuneration of any kind. I do, however, wish them the best of luck in their endeavor. If you like the Handplane Challenge video series, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you like this particular video, please leave comments below. I love to hear from you. Anything goes, but helpful criticism is always a good thing, and in particular, if anyone has more information on these particular planes, it's always, please leave the comment. And so, without further ado, we'll see you next time on the Handplane Challenge.